I want to talk about Michael Jai White. Specifically, I want to talk about Blood and Bone. Blood and Bone is a 2009 low-budget, straight-to-DVD movie which Michael Jai White starred in and co-produced. Michael Jai White's career as an actor is pretty impressive. For starters, he was the first black actor to play a comic book superhero in the movie Spawn. And I might not be alone in this. I originally thought that was Wesley Snipes. I thought that he did it first, but that was actually the following year in 1998. Secondly, Michael Jai White was Black Dynamite, the crowning achievement of his entire career.
I am declaring war on anybody who sells drugs in our community.
But Black Dynamite, I sell drugs to the community.
There is a third accomplishment, and that's being in one of the worst fight scenes ever choreographed. Now, I wouldn't necessarily blame you if you've never heard of Michael Jai White, because it's not exactly a household name, I guess. And if you've never heard of Michael Jai White, then you've absolutely never heard of Ben Ramsey. This is the guy who directed Blood and Bone, which is definitely one of the movies that I have seen with my eyes. A fun fact is that Ben Ramsey was actually a production assistant on Silence of the Lambs. And another really fun fact, and I mean really, really sad, he wrote the screenplay for Dragon Ball Evolution. He's gone on record saying that it was, quote, a very painful creative point in my career, and 7 years after its release, which is 1 year for every one of the Dragon Balls. Ben Ramsey issued a public apology. He expressed remorse for writing this movie. He literally received hate mail from every corner of the globe for like 7 years. Blood and Bone is a prime example of what screenwriters could get away with in the early 2000s. The way that political correctness is really important in a lot of people's minds. As soon as you apply that current day standard to this movie, it just becomes a nightmare. Just mindless, over-the-top fun. And actually, there's moments of incredibly crisp fight choreography. But there's one scene in particular that really stands out in my mind, and that's when this gang lord, the bad guy, his name is James. James is having this guy over for dinner, like one of the people that works for him. James decides that this guy's not doing his job very well.
You get that thing off to Franklin?
Franklin, dude, don't even worry about that guy.
And James is very upset about that, and so he lulls this man into a false sense of security by singing along to pop music with him.
A little white boy music to aid digestion.
A little white boy music.
We were so in phase in our dance hall days.
And then he stabs him to death. And that's it. That's the scene. Anyway, what we learn about James is that he likes to use swords. And he really likes Wang Chung.
What's wrong? You don't think the brothers are down with Wang Chung?
Very relaxing to listen to while killing people. I could have never seen this coming, but at that point in the runtime, they're just getting warmed up.
Get back. Get back. What's wrong with you?
They eat dogs in China. They're looking at me like Chinese takeout.
I have no idea how to even begin. Basically, Michael Jai White's character is called Isaiah Bone, and he's just been released from prison, where a whole bunch of people were trying to kill him. And he has nowhere to stay, so he's kind of just wandering around LA for a bit, until he sees an apartment building where one of the rooms is up for rent. Michael Jai White, Bone, I should say, introduces himself to Tamra, the landlady. Tamra is instantly suspicious of Michael Jai White because of his very robust figure and unbelievably humble fashion sense. And maybe because he carries all of his belongings in a sack. In which case, I would say that's pretty judgmental. Sincerely though, she looks after children. So she lays down these ground rules that Michael Jai White has to follow in order to be allowed to stay.
No gangsters, no guns, no loud music, no women.
And then cut to a Grand Theft Auto cutscene, but the Grand Theft Auto cutscene is pregnant with a deleted Mad Max scene. Pretty much, it's an underground fighting competition, and dudes are getting fucked up, dead or alive style. It's about to go off the fucking rails again. Dante Basco, who is playing the comedy relief side character, his name is Pinball, he's the announcer. And so he has a line that goes like this.
And the winner, coming straight from the New York City penal system, the homicide or homosexual, the savage
I don't want to ruin any childhoods. Dante Basco, if you didn't know, did the voice of Jake Long and Prince Zuko in Avatar. Nothing against Dante here. He is an actor doing a job. You know, nothing against the director, even. Honestly, I wish both of them nothing but love. You know, Dante gave us some of the most iconic voices in animation, and Ben, you gave me this unique experience to ponder over. However, I just have to say, hearing things like this in a movie is wild. A little bit jarring is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, James brings a huge fucking guy. And then a much smaller and very sweaty looking guy tries to fight the fucking huge guy and fucking dies. And so James makes a lot of money because he's got a big, strong guy. And his name is Hammerman, which is actually kind of dope. So Bone wants to have a conversation with Pinball, but he doesn't do it in the normal way where you just approach someone and, you know, ask them if they want to talk to you. No, he hides in the back seat of Pinball's car. A serial killer. Something funny that I only properly took in on maybe my second or third watch was that moment where Pinball tries to shoot Michael Jai White, and Michael Jai White just says no. And it's intimidating enough, without him doing anything, to make Pinball put the gun back down.
Don't.
What the fuck you want?
Michael clarifies that he wants to have a fight with Hammerman for unknown reasons. Pinball, in maybe the most 2009 way possible, tells Bone that that's not gonna happen.
I want to fight with Hammerman.
Oh yeah, and I want to fuck Beyonce.
If that line was ad-libbed, my man, Dante, American Dragon, reigns supreme.
Shit, you must have smoked that new kind of crack.
After this, Bone just gives Pinball money, which he could have done in the first place instead of gang stalking American Dragon in the parking lot. So Bone convinces Pinball to let him give a demonstration of his fighting style, and they enter the arena. James' wife is there, and she allows herself to be perceived by Michael Jai White, which James doesn't like.
You're looking kind of hard.
So he awkwardly makes out with her in front of everybody, and Michael just stands there with the most unbelievably smug expression I have ever seen. The look on Michael Jai White's face is as if he has figured out the meaning of the universe. So, after that really weird interaction, Pinball has another incredible one-liner.
Let me give you a piece of advice. You just assume glue mouse ears to your balls and dangle in front of an angry alley cat, then fuck with that girl.
He's telling Bone he would be better off gluing mouse ears to his testicles and dangling them in front of an alley cat than he would by messing with James' girlfriend. Holy fuck. Bewildering script writing is, to Ben Ramsey, what being pretentious is to David Lynch. I don't think he means to do it, but he's really good at it. So then Bone has his first underground fight and naturally, absolutely destroys his opponent. And then he starts asking Pinball about James' girlfriend.
No, get that shit out your head right now, man. Fuck that. You need to sit right there and have a long, introspective conversation with your dick there, Holmes.
You need to have a long, introspective conversation with your dick. I cannot think of a better reply. I think that that's the only thing that you can say to that in this context. And like, it's categorically the best one. Nonetheless, he ends up explaining that James' girlfriend, Angela, was married to someone else. And she was pregnant at the time, but James somehow framed him for murder and then forced her to terminate the pregnancy. Now he's basically holding her prisoner because of just everything. She's developed a drug addiction. So pretty much James has just completely fucking destroyed this woman's life. Then we move on to the next scene, which is James carrying out the assassination after helping his digestion with some white boy music. So we've come full circle. Pinball drops Bone off at the apartment after a long day of kung fu, and Pinball tries to dap him up, and Michael Jai White rejects him. Are you fucking kidding me? And then we have some domestic abuse, where James is telling Angela that she is a junkie and good for nothing.
I'm good to you anymore. You ain't nothing but a junkie.
It's really, really depressing, but somehow it's just completely awkward. Like, I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I'm not sure that it's for the correct reason. Everything comes across just really stiff. I don't know, like maybe it's because we're in this marriage story era of acting in film.
Every day I wake up!
Where people have to like cry and like fucking scream their lungs out at each other. I really don't know if it's just maybe I'm conditioned to expect that. It's just these horrendous like situations taking place. Absolute horrific abuse, and he's barely speaking above a whisper. It's quite an intriguing choice. And then it cuts to Michael Jai White doing the same thing that I do whenever I hear drama happening outside my apartment, which is staring out of a window with no shirt on. Moving along, one of James' henchmen shows him footage of Bone knocking this guy out in the street fight. James wants to know where Bone is from. He wants to know who Bone is. And the henchman tells him that only Pinball knows. And then we come full circle again because we're back to the fucked up dog scene. And then we get this really sweet, actually quite nice scene of Bone sitting down with Roberto. He's this elderly guy who also lives in the apartment building. They sit and play chess. It's kind of nice. Bone basically starts watching over all of these other people who live in the building. He kind of speaks up for them and stands up for them. He becomes a role model for the kids that live there. Tamra is starting to find Bone suspicious again.
I'm not sure I approve of the company you keep, Mr. Bone.
And Bone doesn't give a normal, honest, rational response. He basically just shrugs it off with an action movie line.
Me neither.
And then cut to more underground street fighting. Pinball sets up another match for Bone. There is appropriate confusion over Bone's name.
Over here we got this guy, Bone.
They set up a match with Bone and the man with the golden grill.
He's got to put it all up against the man with the golden grill. Yeah.
Why did I not get a movie exclusively about the man with the golden grill? Where is my Blood and Bone cinematic universe? So he faces
the man with the golden grill.
And obviously Pinball, for some reason. I'm not really sure what this is about because it's pretty stupid. Pinball says,
Man, 2 at a time, bitches! 2 at a time! Pay me, tattoo, pay me!
What'd you say? 2 at a time?
but luckily, it wasn't actually 2 at a time. When they said 2 at a time, they actually meant that the choreography team would make it so that they would all take turns attacking Michael Jai White instead of all at once or 2 at a time. No shade to Michael Jai White though, please. I love you. The guy who owns the man with the golden grill, I don't know. The guy who owns him is like, no fucking way.
No fucking way, homie.
Bone and Pinball get heaps of money, and then they get shot at because people are mad that they made heaps of money.
This motherfucker wildin' out.
Bone does beautiful interpretive dance, and he beats the fucking shit out of people. Basically, in order to ascend the ranks, he has to defeat a series of mini-bosses until he gets to the final big boss, which is Hammerman. And then we get this really weird scene, which did not age well at all, where it's Pinball and Bone sitting in the car, and Pinball kind of just starts gushing to Michael Jai White about how he's so grateful for everything that he's done and how he's brought a lot of success to Pinball's life. And he says the words, "I love you," and Michael Jai White just kind of gives him this really weird look. And then Pinball has to backpedal and clarify, like, oh, wait, no, like...
No, I mean, I don't mean that in a, homosexual, like I'm trying to get with you kind of way. I mean that in, like...
And then it gets even weirder when Michael Jai White grabs a joint out of Pinball's hand, chucks it out the window, kind of implying this reaction of like, wow, dude, what kind of shit are you smoking that is making you express affection to a man? What are you, gay or something? Weed makes you gay. Weed will turn you gay. And then we get a scene of Tamra taking care of Bone, tending to his wounds. She talks about how she has to stop the children from being killers, thugs, hoes, and street fighters. Michael Jai White kinda has this little sheepish look on his face. Just kinda like, wait a second, but I'm a street fighter. Tamra explains that one of the children living in the apartment building, Jared, is waiting for his parents, and his dad is in jail. Bone decides to teach Tamra Tai Chi, so at this point in the runtime, Bone has become this very strong figure in all of these other people's lives. They do this really cute callback, because that first scene of them playing chess, Roberto says, "I always think 3 moves ahead," or something like that. Bone beats him, and he says, "I always think 4 steps ahead," whatever it is. It's a good, cute little moment. And then Roberto witnesses the aftermath of a crime scene where James slammed a car into someone. And then moving on from that, very swiftly I might add, finally, we're gonna have the Hammerman fight. So then we see Hammerman ranting and raving and injecting himself with steroids. But nonetheless, Michael Jai White absolutely, completely obliterates Hammerman with the sheer force and power of Tai Chi. And then James wants Bone and Pinball to go to his place to celebrate. Bone sees Angela again. James kind of gestures over to Bone and looks at her and he's like, "Hey, check it out, he won." She says,
"Words can't describe how little I give a damn."
And then there's another pretty funny moment, which is Pinball basically piecing the fuck out. He's just like, "Okay, like, good luck, guys. I'm done." And he just marches away to a different part of the house. So James explains to Bone that there's this elite group. Pretty much at the very bottom is the underground fight arena, and at the very top is these rich and powerful guys. And they like to set up fights between people for entertainment. And James wants to be part of the consortium, and he wants to set up a fight between Bone and Pretty Boy Price, who is the best fighter in the consortium. James wants to basically showcase Michael Jai White as a fighter so that these rich and powerful people will allow him into their circle. His ultimate goal is to join these guys, but Michael Jai White refuses. However, and I'm just referring to my notes here, James agrees that if he allows Michael Jai White to cuck him, basically it's like a trade. Michael Jai White gets to cuck someone, and James gets to be part of the consortium, and he can set up a fight with Pretty Boy Price and Bone, and then he can be one of the big boys. Incidentally, because I skimmed over this for some reason, it costs $5 million for James to set up a fight with Bone and Pretty Boy Price. Another thing is that James tells Bone that basically he wants to do what Bone did to him, but to the consortium, which is basically take all of their money and make them look stupid. He wants to be like them, but he also wants to destroy them. So James is very confused. Something else that's fucked up is that James has to bribe his prisoner wife with drugs so that she will sleep with Michael Jai White. But it's okay, because, plot twist, Michael Jai White actually knows her husband, and he reveals that man's dying wish was that Michael Jai White protect his wife and kids. And then we get probably one of the best moments in the movie.
You're my white knight here to save me from the tower.
Well, I don't know about White Knight.
But before that, it's kind of fucked, because it's Michael Jai White just shaming Angela for being a druggie.
Tell me something. Is this the woman that Danny cried over and begged me to look after as he was dying? Did you forget you had a son? Huh?
Don't you judge me. Don't you fucking judge me.
To me, Blood and Bone feels like a modern-day blaxploitation movie. It verges on being self-aware, and then it just fucking pulls the rug from under me, and it doubles down. So then Michael is like, hey, James, if you're tired of this fucking woman, why don't you let me take her away for a little bit? And James is like, well, what's in it for me? And Bone is like, obviously, I'm gonna fight Pretty Boy Price. Let me cuck your let me cuck you. And James is like, yes, Michael Jai White, please, please. Cuck me more, Michael Jai White. So then Michael Jai White drops Angela off at rehab, and Angela's like, hey, Michael, I want to see my son. And Michael's like, not until you stop being gay.
I want to see my son.
Not till you're straight.
Alright, I'm trying to fucking prepare myself for this, because holy fucking shit. James goes to the consortium, and there's this fucking Malcolm McDowell looking motherfucker, and James is like, I want to set up a fight. And this old white dude is like, no. And then James is like, you're racist. You're fucking racist. And he's like, yeah, I am. What about it?
You're right.
And then we get one of the most racist monologues I've ever heard in a movie.
You are African American, and myself and my friends, for the most part, don't care for the company of African Americans. Quite frankly, we're entertained by you. That wonderful sense of rhythm you have, your animal athleticism. But apart from that, we have no use for you. I mean, let's face it, James. Do you set a place at your dinner table for your pit bulls?
And then James is like, well, joke's on you, buddy. I have a massive cock.
I imagine several hundred years ago, a group of very powerful men, none of them like yourself, were out conquering the known world. So they get to Africa, feeling pretty good about themselves, definitely feeling superior to the savages they see running in the jungle. That is, until one of the brothers drops his loincloth. And then these powerful men all of a sudden come face to face, so to speak, with one of life's great iniquities.
And fucking old white, whatever his name is just fucking like, no, I have the biggest penis.
Well, let's whip them out, and I'll settle that myth right here and now.
And then they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll set up the fight. And then we have quite a devastating scene where Bone shows up at a crime scene and he identifies Roberto's body. We don't see it happen. It's extremely sudden, but basically, James fed Roberto to the fucking pit bulls. Grim. So now, finally, we're gearing up for the final act. James decides to come to the apartment building, and Bone is like, actually, just kidding. I don't want to do the fight. And James is like, I spent $5 million and got cocked. You have to do the fight. Please, bro, please. And then Michael Jai White uses the power of Tai Chi and he fucks James off. James sends Hammerman after Pinball. Pinball kind of makes fun of him a little bit.
With that motherfucker Bone.
Well, the last time I saw him, I believe he was at your mother's house with a box of condoms and a bucket of chicken.
But then Hammerman informs Pinball that he is in fact from Pittsburgh.
Don't you know I'm from Pittsburgh?
And they don't play with that shit in Pittsburgh.
We don't play that shit!
Unfortunately, Bone arrives at the last moment and rescues Pinball. And then this random woman just tells James where Angela is.
I seen that girl y'all was talking about at the intersection. Back where the judge sent me to get clean. She in there. That girl, she in there.
But Pinball and Bone set up an ambush. And then Pinball executes James' right-hand man for crimes against the Asian American community.
They eat dogs in China.
Oh, fuck.
And then we get this excellent meltdown scene. And then James is like, hey, motherfucker, track my location, follow me. And Bone is like, okay. And so James leads him directly to the consortium. And then they hold Michael Jai White at gunpoint. Basically, it's like fight or die. And then Pretty Boy Price shows up, and we get maybe one of the cleanest fight scenes I've seen in a movie. Michael Jai White beats the shit out of Pretty Boy Price and then forfeits. James loses his fucking temper and starts sword fighting with Michael Jai White. But Michael Jai White fucks him up. And he's recorded the conversation, so now there's this really incriminating evidence, and Pinball is gonna send it to the police. And then Angela finally rocks up at the apartment. She's reunited with her son. It's quite nice. And Bone is just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go. And he literally walks off into the sunset. And we finish with a little bit of Genghis Khan. So that's Blood and Bone. If I were to summarize my thoughts, it would be, I don't fucking know, 2000s era blaxploitation. Surprisingly, very racist. Look, Ben Ramsey, Dante Basco, Michael Jai White, we might never get a combination like this again. It has the same vibes as Rush Hour with like Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker, but a little bit lower budget. Anyway, if you know any movies that are similar to this that you can recommend, I would love to do more reviews. I don't have the most professional setup, and it's my first time making a video like this, but I would love to do more. So yeah, 2009, Blood and Bone, Michael Jai White. Forever. I guess if I'm making the Anthony Fantano reference, I at least have to give it a rating out of 10. Probably I would give this maybe a light 5. Actually, no, strong 5, light 6. Yeah, I really don't know how to do an outro.